Share with you the Brandon Craig story and the Brandon Craig family story. And Brandon was asking me before we got started, what do you want to come out of this? And I'm like, well, I want to come out of it, your story and your experience and your insight. And it's neat because he works with a lot of people and he hears a lot of how people are trying to do these amazing things, and sometimes health gets in the way. And so we started off as a doctor-patient relationship, and now I consider him one of my dear friends. And so it was just a pleasure to have him in studio. And one of the reasons why we do this is because so many times people say, well, I have X condition, Y condition, I've got fibromyalgia, I've got endometriosis, I've got brain fog, I've got arthritis, can you help me? And one of the things we decided to do on Thursdays is to talk to people that are in the trenches and that are experiencing it, not only for them, because when Brandon came to the office, it really wasn't for him, but then it kind of turned into something where I'm like, look, I want everybody in my life and in my circle to live up here. I want them to thrive and not just be surviving. And so Brandon graciously accepted my invitation to come in studio. I've been looking forward to this all week long. So Brandon, welcome to the Dr. J Live at 5. And you have got so much experience and wealth about experience and working with other people and your family members. And so, like, kind of walk people through, like, how in the world did you end up in the booming megatropolis of Pocatello from the surface of the sun, also known as Phoenix, Arizona?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, one of the patients when I was in the office today asked me the same thing, who happened to be, the patient was from Idaho, and it was her first day in the office today. And I recognized, in her body language and in her behavior, I recognized, she was nervous. Right. And I sat next to her, and it actually reminded me a lot of what got us here. So, and I shared some of that with her, so it's fresh. So, I have at the time, a 20-year-old son who had developed a bunch of symptoms, and they were just not normal symptoms. And we went on a journey to discover how to handle that. And they kept getting worse, and we weren't getting great answers. And we're a family that's committed to our health, and he's probably the one that's most committed to his health. And at 20, his body started shutting down, and it was really it's pretty scary. Yeah. It's emotional just because I remember the moment where I told my wife, it doesn't matter what it will take. We're gonna find a solution. We're gonna figure it out. And we didn't have one. We had several options. They were not solutions. And we sort of went the mainstream medical route. We had gotten several opinions and several different diagnoses. And really, we were more confused and more frustrated at that point than we had been on the whole process. So, am I dragging this out too long?
No, this is perfect. Like, because I want people to just know, like, it's not just them. I mean, like, this is what people are going through. They're trying to find, like, this isn't how life is supposed to be for your 20-year-old son. This is not how life's supposed to be. And so many people think that this is only their road, and it's not. Like, there's a lot of people on this road. So this is perfect. Like, just keep going. Yeah.
So I had a client at the time who suggested that I look into this office in Pocatello, Idaho, Dr. West. And so, I'd been talking with a lot of people, but then I had one of the coaches that worked for my firm said the same thing, and they were independent of each other. And then my wife and I ran into one of my dearest high school best friends and his wife at a football game, and they started talking to us about Dr. West. And it was like, okay, there's 3 different data points, all independent of each other. And again, we're from Gilbert, Arizona, so it's not like there's a connection. And so
So in the way that I do, I went to work and I called the office and I started doing some research and looking, you know, obviously talked to those 3 people and got as much information as they were willing to share. But the real value came when I called the office and I asked them for 3 patients that they have seen over the last 3 to 5 years. And of course they weren't super excited to give that information up. It took a little bit of work. They had to contact the patient, get their permission, and then they connected us. And I followed up on all 3 of those people, and I made contact with them, and I had a conversation with each of them. And I'll tell you, that was great news, what I learned. And it was.
And so, Brandon, what did they tell you? Like, and again, not like, you don't have to get really into the weeds, but, and I was aware that you had talked to 1. I didn't know you had 3. I thought, because Jody came and said, hey, there's this crazy guy on the phone that wants to, they want the patient database. Like, they want to know who it is. I'm like, well, find someone. And so, in a general sense, because I'm anticipating those experiences were different. There were different conditions, or at least I think they were.
Yeah.
But you talked to them, and what did they tell you?
Yeah, so, you know, all 3 obviously had a different story, somewhat of, you know, I don't remember all the details of what had them come see you. So what sticks out to me, I mean, this has been, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, pushing 3.
Yeah, what sticks out most to me is the experience I had with them was the level of confidence that they had about, you know, in you, but not just in you, in the clinic, and, you know, just the way the clinic runs, the treatments. And in certain cases, like what I was left with was they didn't exactly really fully understand how they were helped, but like, you know, 2 of the 3, you know, experienced it as miraculous. Like it was, they were, you know, they did not see any way out of where they were. They were, life was dark. They were, you know, in bad shape, especially one of them, like really, really bad shape. Like I was, just not only grateful to have talked with this woman, but it also had me realize what could have been possible for my own son. Mm-hmm. She shared the same condition that he had, which was Lyme disease. Mm-hmm. And of course, when we learned that my son had Lyme disease, we had no idea that we didn't know anything about Lyme disease. Like, you know, I had no clue what it was, and it seemed as though the doctors that were telling us that he had Lyme disease didn't have any clue what it was either. And you know, and that was not the experience I had speaking with, you know, a couple of these patients. And so
now you said 2 out of 3. So I'm hoping that the other one knew why they got better. So 2 were like, it's just a miracle. And then I'm hoping 1 was like, well, this is why I got better.
But I was listening, you know, like as a while ago, I was more listening to them for confidence in, is this a place I want to invest my time and money and energy? You know, is this a viable option for my son? And so, yeah, I mean, they were raving fans, and of course, out of fairness, like I would not think your office would have given me.
No, it's true.
People that you didn't help, right?
Yeah, I would have not have said to Jody, find a failure and have them talk to them.
Yeah,
right? I mean, yes.
Right. So, yeah, so that was sort of the beginning of our relationship, and so my wife called the office, and they said, hey, there's a period of time you have to wait. We're busy, and so we did some work around that with the office, and we got some dates scheduled, and I think we had to wait longer than we wanted, but it worked out. And so we were told by your office that, look, when you come, you know, here's the process. You're going to come in, you're going to meet with the doctor, you're going to have, you know, I don't know what they called it, but in my head it was an intake. Like we're going to learn about your situation, and we're going to have the doctor interact with you around that, and we'll discover if there's something that can be done or not.
Right.
And So once we'd gone through all this process and we scheduled the dates, I told Lori, like, look, if we're going up there, like, why don't we go ahead and get checked too? So she said, okay, I think that's a great idea. She had been wrestling with for many years some certain health conditions that she'd gotten almost no traction with.
Right.
And then, you know, with me, like, I'm just committed to my health. Like, I wanted to, you know, I'm all about performance, and for me to have a healthy body and have a mind that works well is you know, is rooted in performance. So the office was generous. They set us all three up with appointments, and they said, if we are going to treat you, what would be most ideal is if you could schedule your time and plan to be here for at least 4 weeks. So I'm sure people probably, if they don't know anything about you and what you do, they're probably thinking like, man, 4 weeks? Well, maybe it's not like that for everyone. Maybe they could see right through what we had going on. I don't know. Because we didn't tell them, by the way. We didn't know anything about Lyme disease.
Right.
We didn't necessarily trust the doctor that had told him, and even the doctor wasn't confident he had Lyme disease.
Right.
So
It was kind of like what they call a differential diagnosis. Like, it was, I think this is what it is.
yeah,
I'm kind of confident in it.
there's a likelihood.
There's a likelihood you
know,
got that.
Yeah. So we came, and we had a great experience through what I'm calling the intake program, and that's the first time you and I met in person.
Right. Which is kind of funny, you guys, because I want to say, like, what I want to do with patients when we come in and we visit is I don't want a doctor-patient relationship. Like, I want a real relationship. So I ask people all these questions about, what do you like to do? What do you do for fun? Because I want to know people. Like, you can't serve them the best if it's just medical information. But I remember Brandon sitting there, and I think you even told me, like, we're here, but if we don't like it, we're out of here. I mean, I remember clearly you're like, look, if this doesn't make sense on this visit, like, we'll be in Arizona tomorrow. And I can remember thinking, okay, well, I got to bring my A game, because I want to make sure that, like, I know that I can help him. And then when we did the workup on your wife, I'm like, hey, I can help her. And then you're like, look, I just want to be up here, which is where I want to be. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to treat you like me, because that's where I want to be. But, and then when we talked about, the 4-week thing, like, with as sick as your son was, I'm like, it's not a one-shot deal. You can't just roll someone in for a day and then wave your magic wand and they're better. But we kind of get through the first day, and then pick us up from there. Like,
yeah.
It's day one, and then what happens?
Yeah, so let's just put it this way. The West Clinic does not waste 1 second of time when it comes to being committed to your health for you. And what I'm clear and what I've learned about is, you take clients or patients, I guess you call them, who are also, committed to getting better, right? And that's my language. That really worked well for me. So, like, they tested, we all three came into, and look, if this isn't what you do now, it's fine, right. You can correct it. But the way we did it is we all three came into the office, and we did your intake process. And as soon as you discovered what was happening with Wesley, which is who we had you look at first, like, you had your assistant come in and get him, and you took him right to the IV room and started treatments on him. And it's like incredible. Looking back, it's easier to see that you knew you could help him. And in that moment, you didn't sit and say, hey, this is what it's going to cost, and you just said, like, get him in there.
Right.
And yeah, it's moving, because it literally changed his life and mine and my wife. So that's what it looked like. Checked his blood, did the intake, could see clearly what needed to happen and what was happening, and your team went to work. And then we checked my wife, and you did your thing with her and the way that you do it, and then she sat in there while you did mine because she wanted to hear it, and then we both got up and went and started getting treatments. And at a certain point through the day, like, we sat down with Jody, we talked about the treatment plans that you and her worked out together, and you gave us pricing and all of that, which, I know factors in for people, but honestly, looking back, and I know me, and I know that there was a point in that time where I was concerned about the cost, right?
Right, of course.
But
you're normal.
Yeah, but looking back, knowing what I know today, it wouldn't have mattered. Like if I could somehow know what I know today, it wouldn't have mattered what it cost. And of course, money is money. You got to factor it in. So we went through that process. It was really easy to understand. You had it worked up and very clear. And I hadn't planned on staying there for 4 weeks myself. And my wife and I were gonna kind of take turns just to support our son and go back and forth. So I had some real work to do to organize my life to be up there for 4 weeks and get treated myself. And I'll tell you, everyone, that I learned something in that session with you that I did not know about myself. We discovered that I also had Lyme disease, and that that there were certain things that I had always just had, and I hadn't ever considered that could be different, or I didn't even know that it could be different. And so those 4 weeks are memorable. We've talked about those a lot, and
Brandon, well, we take him in. So I saw him. I saw how miserable he was, and so immediately on the physician side, I'm like, okay, we're gonna do something. Like when you said you immediately started him, it was because like, okay, let's create an environment for change.
Yeah.
And some of the clinic experiences, like it'd be nice for people to just hear what were some of the treatments, what was different, and because when you create balance and you start infusing people with electrons and you start working on their nervous system, it creates some changes. So you see what's happening. So just walk us through some of the treatments, and then what do you see in your son, and what do you see a little bit in Lori without divulging any personal information? What do you see? What's happening?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, you could speak to the treatments better than I can. I can tell you that there's treatments that we have experienced then and since that I've never heard before, never heard of. There's certainly lots of information on them after I've heard of them. I can go study about them on the internet, and there's, I feel like you have found a way to bring in a lot of different methodologies and modalities and, medical devices, and it's across the board. There's so many, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, there's a lot of infusion therapy, so which I've gained a deep respect for.
So the infusion therapy is vitamin C and the minerals and the vitamins and stuff like that. So that's the backbone of what we do. But there's also some other things, and we did some cranial work, we did some, so just kind of to the extent, I don't expect you to to explain it. I just want for someone listening to be okay, well, maybe that's what I'm going to experience, because most people experience a version of that. Everybody's different. No one gets the same thing, and I actually like to kind of change things up. I like to hear what it is and kind of make a different plan every day based upon what you tell me. But to the extent that you can kind of paint a little picture of that, I mean, go for it.
Yeah. So. I mean, look, it's tough to speak to, but I'll do my best. So there's the experience that I have when I come into the West Clinic, and of course I've been there many times since. Many times, probably exaggeration, but maybe 4 or 5 times in 2.5 years. Is that number one? You just said it, and I don't know if you said it, and that is you're involved and you pay attention, and there's a personal touch happening that to me is really valuable. I don't want to just get in a corral and just do what everyone else is doing. And if I knew that's what worked, that's great. But my body, there's nobody else's body like my body.
For sure.
So forth. So, so the experience is that. I love that part of what you do. That you're hands-on, your staff is super well connected. I want to make sure I say this too, so that it doesn't get forgotten or missed. And that is that one of the things I've observed because of being in your clinic, and one of the things I've observed that I experience is just really powerful, is that you work with your team, and you do that before the day starts. The patients don't see it, but you work with your team. You talk about the patients that are coming in. You train your team. You're constantly helping them remember and realize the nature of who they are in the process. I experience each of your team members being, just as committed to people's health as you are, and that's not normal, right?
It's taken work to do that. Like, we religiously and pig-headed determination, train. And that was kind of by accident. I mean, I thought that it was going to be really tough to survive without my dad, and I thought he died 10 years ago, and I'm like, every morning I got people together and I said, I want you guys to understand what's important to me, and then who's coming in, and we try to treat everybody like it's your wife, your husband, your cousin, your best friend. Like, that's what we're trying to create, in making sure that we touch base with people. And so walk us through Wes's journey a little bit. Like, he's in there, and he's really sick, and it's in a typical patient, and whether it's MS or neuropathy or cancer support therapy or Lyme disease or Epstein-Barr, they all have the same common denominator, and that's people don't feel good. So the first thing is let's try and at least change that axis a little bit. So your observations 2.5 years ago on your 20-year-old son that's not feeling good is what?
Yeah, so look, at the beginning, it was up and down. Those first 4 weeks of treatment, my wife and I and Wes, we got an Airbnb in town here, and we pulled up home. This was going to be home for 4 weeks. And we all three got different types of treatment, and we all three had different experiences of the treatment. And what I can say is, over that 4 weeks time, Wes got a little bit worse before he got better. And I'm not saying his symptoms got worse, I'm saying that he felt worse. It was, you hammered him, you went to town. But about midway through, so about 2 weeks in of getting treatments, 5 days a week, he started noticing very quickly rapid differences in certain things. I did too, my wife did too, in our own ways. And you helped us with supplements. We went home, and what I noticed was just a progression, just a continual progression of him feeling a little bit better and a little bit better. And I think it was maybe, for our particular situation, it might have been 3 months or 4 months after that, we came back up for, I can't remember if it was a week or 2 weeks.
It was a week, so it was a tune-up week.
Yeah.
That's what we call them, a tune-up week.
So, and look, it was good timing. You kind of called it out ahead of time, which was useful for us to plan for it. And at that time, it was good timing. We started noticing that he was not feeling quite as good as he had. Still, 100 times better than when we brought him. But, you sort of had it dialed in, and we noticed him starting to feel a little bad, and that's when we came, and it was, like you say, a tune-up. So the different kinds of treatments that I think are worth speaking into, I know you've asked me that a couple different ways. We mentioned the infusion therapy, which is really really amazing. You get high dose vitamins and minerals into your bloodstream, and your body gets to begin to interact with that. There's neurotherapy, which I knew zero about, and it's
and not very many people do it. That's why I know people. And that's, you guys, every team interview, every time I do something, I always talk about how to reset the nerves. And so you have the little neural therapy that's going on. What else?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, that makes a difference.
For sure.
You want to jump past it, but no, it really makes a difference. We did some detox work, which is useful. Acupuncture, light bed therapy. There's
and you got to tell them a little bit about the cranial work, the balloon therapy and stuff, because it's so weird to people, but at the same time, like, it's probably the most requested procedure we get in the office.
Yeah, and how would I ever, like, I don't know how to explain that, but
So
like, yeah.
We've talked a little bit about that, where we take a sphygmomanometer, which is the fancy way of saying you have a blood pressure cuff, and we put a little finger cot on the end. You tie it on with string, which he teases me about how long it takes, but there's a specific way you have to tie on something at the end of the blood pressure cuff. You lubricate it and you insert it right down the nose here and across the palate, not up towards the eyes, across the palate. You have patients take a breath in, you give it a little squeezes, and that balloon, like, it's almost like a jacket. What it does is it expands. And when it expands, it like resets the cranial connections and the sutures, and it influences the pituitary gland, and it releases oxytocin and growth hormone, and helps you to breathe better. And I can remember as I was putting that together, you know, Brandon, as an efficiency expert, was like, hey man, this is not very efficient. Like, you've got to find, and I'm like, it's part of the process. Like, it's just, it's like the way we do it. And he's like, yeah, but there has to be a faster way. I'm like, I know, but like, this is just like the ritual. It kind of gets me in the right headspace. It kind of, like, maybe there is a faster way, and I don't even know if I do it, because it's kind of my way to like meditate on what I'm going to do while I'm tying this on. And for the people that experienced it, you know, the first thing that happened, they get it done on the table, and their response is, what the hell has just happened? And then he's never going to do that to me again. And then the next visit, they're like, I got to have it.
Yep.
That's kind of, and it's one of those things where it's so valuable. And I never learned it in school. My dad taught it me, my grandpa learned it. And so much of what we do in the office, the experience is like what's happened in the trenches. Like, when we talk about this cafeteria thing where we're pulling off here, here, and here, and here, is because that's the way that my grandfather did it, and then my dad did it, and then anyway, it's just like whatever we can think of that is inspired, that arrives, that shows up for us. Like, that's how you help people, is you got to be able to like have the courage to just be like, I'm absolutely doing this off of what you're telling me and the intuition that goes off that. And as you experience, like, every day I try to touch base with people. Like, you came in this morning, and I'm writing up the treatment plan in the hall saying, okay, Macy, we're going to do this and do this and do this. And Wes, and so give everybody kind of a status report. Like, you know, how's Wes? I know he's not perfect. Like, they're up here for some more tune-up, but compared to where he was, and then Wes has turned into kind of, I mean, almost like a little godson, you know. And he's not little, but like, he's just really special to me. And so, you know, he'll text me, and we have, you know, and he invited me to go do some fun things with him. Like, he's super special to me. But how is he now?
Yeah, well, now his life is predictable and manageable, and it's all because of your work. You know, he has a grip on it. You know, and it, you know, is there, you know, given the journey that we've been on for 2.5 or almost 3 years, there's just a tremendous amount of confidence in knowing that this is a place we can come. And, you know, our visits have gotten further and further apart.
Right.
And, you know, you notice on this trip, my wife's not with me, because she's like, yeah, I don't need to go. Like, I feel great, and I'm really clear, and
which is a big deal, because, like, anyway, just for a chronic problem to show up and then, like, get better, like, it's like one of the best feelings ever.
Yeah, 18-year chronic problem, and what I can tell you, you know, and I don't have her permission to share the details, otherwise I would, and I would love to share the details, because I'm pretty certain that there are women listening to this that would benefit from it, but I don't have it. I don't have permission. But what I can tell you is that there were periods of time in that 18 years where she was ready to give up. Like, I had flown her to other states to look at, you know, to work with specialists. You know, we've done all kinds of different scope work and different CAT scan work, and like, we've big investment of time, energy, money, and very, very little, if not any, like no results. And you know, the first 4 weeks was, you know, gave her hope again.
Nice. Now, switching gears just a little bit, and I have her testimonial, and we've shared it on social media, but I also wanted to just touch a little bit on Lily. You know, I talked to Lily earlier, and I'm like, hey, can we touch on your story? And she's like, yeah, of course, go ahead. But walk people through kind of who Lily is, and then how does she show up, and then what happens? Because this is fun, not only for me, but like, you're not like, Lily's not in your life like everybody else was.
Right.
So she shows up, and what is it?
Yeah, so my older son, so Wes is my second son, so his older brother was dating a girl, Lily, and, you know, they began to date seriously, and, you know, she was interacting with our family, and, you know, as we got to know each other, we discovered that she was, you know,
had some stuff going on.
Yeah, I want to say struggling, but I don't know that she even thought it was struggling. She just had, it's just the way it was. She had
it's normal for her.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, this is how my life is.
Yeah, and she had like certain pills she was taking that she'd been taking for years and years that her mom and dad helped her get, you know, through their doctor.
Medical
and,
system, yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, we were doing some a leadership performance course in Salt Lake City, and so she was invited to be a part of that, and so was other members of my family. So anyway, we were all up here in the area, and we decided to bring her with us. We scheduled time in the clinic because we knew we were going to be close, and we decided to bring her with us. And so while she was there, I encouraged her to consider getting looked at, and she was open to it. And so it looks like we sort of, you know, tricked her into it, but we didn't. Like, right. It's just the way it worked out. We obviously were committed to her and her health, and so you looked at her and, you know, did your intake with her, and the outcome of that was a diagnosis that was completely new for her. In fact, she didn't know anything about it.
And everyone in here's like to not divulge confidences, which it kind of doesn't matter what it is, because what the most amazing part about Lily's story is just having someone out of control to being in control. Like, that was my contribution to her. Yes, she needed some of the treatments and stuff like that, but what had happened is, so that there's this beautiful girl, and now her and Nate are engaged, so Brandon's gonna get, you know, a new daughter-in-law, and how her life was chaotic. And it wasn't chaotic by choice. It was, well, I don't go to bed on time because I don't feel like it, and I'll just stay up when I'm tired, then I'll go to bed. And so we had just this out of control physiology. And the biggest breakthrough with her was when I was saying, look, like, let's just put your body in a system. Like, let's just get order in the system. And her first thing was like, that's just too simple. And I'm like, look, let's just try, like, I just want you to go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time. And of course she's like, no, like, you don't understand what I have. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you, like, you're overanalyzing and you're undervaluing just the control portion. And then, you know, her fiance steps in and is like, hey, let's try this. And one of the most exciting days I've had is just when I walked in. And when she starts to get in control, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel better. Like, forget the other treatments. Like, it was just so fun to see her saying, look, I'm gonna be me. Like, I'm gonna arrive, I'm telling the universe this is what I'm going to do. And it's one of my favorite patient stories. Like, her video of her walking around the office with her phone saying, hey, this is how I feel, because she's going to bed early, she gets up early, she works out, she eats clean. Like, none of that was there for her before. And I can hear my dad chatting at me saying, like, well, that's what you do. This is how you teach people. And that basic rule, like, it didn't work for her before. And then when we got it lined up, and then it's just the funnest story ever.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, you restored order in a chaotic body. So yes, to everything you said, there was chaos out here, and you know, and there was learning that happened that created opportunity for her to know how to interact with it, new motivations, new understandings, off the old medications, you know, over time, under direction. Yeah, total life change.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I've got, you know, a new godson in Wes, a new godson in Nate, a new pseudo daughter-in-law in Lily. Like, it's just like, anyway, and my dad told me, in his prophecy was this, like, Jason, there's going to be people that you meet that come into the office that you will interact with and develop a relationship, and your life and their life will never be the same. And that's, like, I try to create that with every patient. And so now, Brandon, as things are going on, like, you have this amazing business that you're interacting with high executive performance people, and you've referred a couple to the office, and I just wanted to touch a base, like when you have that thing where people aren't feeling good and you're like, hey, maybe you should go to Pocatello, Idaho, and what's their response? Like, this is funny for me to hear, because to me it's the center of the universe. Other people don't really think that.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the best frame of reference is what I've already said about my getting here, because there was a lot that went into me being willing to, to come up here. But I have had something to do with, more than a couple.
More than a couple, for sure.
People that have organized their lives and come to the clinic, and it actually, the surprise or the challenge of Pocatello, Idaho, it's only there for a few seconds until a person really understands what's possible. And I'm in the business of performance. I work with executives and leaders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs, people that are running companies and that have a lot at stake and that are up to something in the world. And with my work in the domain of performance, there's one factor that I need help with, and it's their health. In other words, like I can do a lot with them in every area of their life, and I can encourage them to be mindful of their health, and and many of them are, and at the same time, most of them benefit from coming to see you. And my recommendation carries a lot of weight with my clients, so I can make the recommendation or encourage them to consider it, and nearly every time they will come, and you deliver. And I was just sitting with somebody a few weeks ago who had participated in one of our leadership courses, and they said, hey, we've heard about, through a few other people we talked to, that you might know something about the West Clinic. And we're like, yeah, we do. So we sat down with them, my wife and I, and they began asking us questions, and they have a daughter, and they were talking about it. And what I discovered when I was talking with them was that they actually had a lot of resistance to coming to Pocatello because it was unknown territory. They had done some other, they'd invested time and energy into some other possible solutions that didn't work out, that required them to travel.
Right.
And, so I know it's a hesitation for some people, I'm guessing, but for me, honestly, I like it. Like, I think it's great. It's an opportunity to disrupt life. Mm-hmm. It's not the most convenient place to get to, but we're totally able to get here.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Brendan, if people are watching this, we have our podcast goes all over. I have people from Australia and England and listening. I have people all across the United States and in faraway places of Alaska and even South America. And a lot of times their friends listen to the podcast, and this is where I want them to get value. So in your discovery of health and what's possible, if someone's listened to us, like, give them a couple gems that they can do at home, that they can implement, that it's powerful, that they don't have to go anywhere, because there's some rules that you know about and things that I try and teach people. So number one, if someone's listening to this that's facing a health challenge, like, how would you speak to them?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say, and I would say I learned some of this from you, which is like I think the word you use, you are not your diagnosis. And, what that means to me is like, get yourself clear about the future that you desire to create for yourself. And, see yourself as a person that can have something to do with creating that future. I think a lot of times, well, probably more times than I even realize, that people with health challenges, health concerns, get to a place where they lose hope. And yeah, it's such a cost. When you think about what's possible. Like I often think in my own mind, I don't share it like this often, but I think about what's the opportunity cost of you not having life in you. And my experience is I've been on this 3-year health journey and interacting with you in your office and having my own experience. And then, look, I'm an influencer in the world. I move through the world, and if I see somebody that needs help and it occurs to me that they could get help over here, I share it with them. And I've seen that happen. I've been a part of that, and I've seen, many people that are willing to take the risk, invest the time and energy, and come see you in your clinic. And there are others who haven't. But one thing that's common among everyone is that there's something really, really incredible sitting in each of your chairs, like who you are and what's possible in this life. And when your health is in the way, it's the thing you ought to be focused on, and just go to work. And what you have, I know you've made it one of your priorities. It occurs to me that you've done that. I don't know if you've done it, but what you have done, what I've watched you do, is you've continued to put more and more resources out for people, and this is an example of that. And you've done that because you want to help people, you want to encourage them, you want to give them opportunities to improve their life and their health, even wherever they may be in the world. And so there's another thing that I wanted to say. I don't want to forget it, so I'm going to say it now, and it's not exactly where we're at in the conversation, but that is that those first 4 weeks that I was at the clinic, I talked to every person I could. It's part of who I am, but I was very intentional. And I met people that, it was their first time there, and I met many people that were back for tune-ups, that, were from Australia, from Europe. I met people from all over North America. And I in a sense, I wanted to learn about them. What has you come here? What's it? And the thing that I hold out as common among all of them was they got hope. Literally, it just came through them. And I experienced that myself as well. And that's what I would say to your listeners or your viewers is if you, even if you think your health is good, because, look, I felt like my health was, I knew there was opportunities to progress in the domain of health for myself, but, I didn't occur for myself as being sick whatsoever. And you discovered some things that, look, I was sick. And I did not see it that way. Mm-hmm. And,
which was funny, because when we brought that up, he's like, I'm not sick. And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to bring you down, but look, it's just right there.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say other than it is what it is. Your report card is this. You can't change that right now. Even though he has an amazing ability to project and create his environment. It's one thing that, I've helped Brandon in his life, but just so you guys know, he's helped me just as much as I've helped him on discovering some other things about myself and the life that I want to create. And it's been amazing. I really, it's amazing, because I'm wondering who needed who more. But that being said, it was fascinating to see that. And then I want you to just give a nugget on this. Maybe it's not possible for people to make the pilgrimage to Idaho. And so one of the things that I say is a barrier to health is not having a relationship with your healthcare provider. Now, I know they don't teach this in my school and in medicine and everything else you should, but I promise that when you have a great relationship with the person in front of you, it doesn't matter which side of the spectrum that you're on. With the doctor, you want a good relationship. With the patient, you want a good relationship. You want to meet that together. But one of the barriers to healing is I tell people, if you don't like your healthcare provider, you're never going to get a good outcome. So the first thing I tell people, I don't care where you're listening from me, if you don't like your doctor, find one that you like. So if people are not an ability to get here, which I think people can, but if they can't get here and they're trying to find answers in the healthcare system, what advice or suggestions would you have in, because my take is just relentlessly keep trying until you find someone that can help you. And I don't have a monopoly on healthcare. There's other doctors that provide help. But what would you say to someone that is searching?
Well, how can I say any more than what you said? Like, yeah, don't stop until you are satisfied. like how what else is there to say? I mean, you've pretty much said it. I could just repeat what you said.
Well, I was trying to like set the table, and then I kept going, and I apologize to everybody for asking a leading question.
Yeah, but I think the value for me, the value in what you're saying is, I have to go back in my mind and really, recall what it was like. And if you were listening a few minutes ago, you know that like this is touching for me. Like the experiences that have provided a different way of living for my son and for my wife and myself and my daughter-in-law and others now in my life it's priceless and in certain ways miraculous. And first off, like, I think people probably wait too long. I think they probably wait too long to actually like go do the work to find the healthcare provider that does align for them, that does really feel balanced. And I think a big part of that is a relationship with that person or I don't feel like I just have a relationship with you. Like, I feel like I have a relationship with the whole clinic. Mm-hmm. I walk in and they're like, "Oh, hey, Brandon, how are you?" And it's it feels like you're part of the family, so to speak. And it, not to get a big head, because like when I turn the corner and someone walks in and they're like, "Oh, hey, John," like it's just how they are with everyone. And
nope, just for you.
Yeah. But it is meaningful, and to be able to have a relationship with somebody that is committed to you and not just committed to getting you through their system. And that's really what we experienced when we began the journey for my son was, first off, we were totally out of our element. Like, we were not sick people. Like, we've been pretty healthy our whole lives, and it hit us out of left field. We had no idea what was happening. And, let me tell you, like, our primary care physician was absolutely as close as you can get to worthless for us in that. Like, and nice clinic, nice guy, totally out of his element, didn't understand any part of it. And I'm not, that's not me bagging on him. I'm just saying, like, now if we want to get our standard immunizations and we want to get an antibiotic for some, infection or something, that, like, he's great. And I don't know that we've been to him since. Like, it just does not make sense for us. But what I would say is there's a certain point at which you get desperate, so to speak, and I just think people wait too long. I don't think you need to get to that point. You just do the work. There's healthcare providers out there, like you say, if they can't come to Pocatello, Idaho, and you can't see everyone in the world,
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
It's hard to get into your office. It's possible, but like, you're doing good things and people show up for that. And but do the work. That's what I would say. Just do the work. And if you don't know how to do the work, find somebody that can help you do the work so that you can go get your health back.
So, you guys, that's really just the story of someone being in the trenches. What's so fun about what I do is, like, and you saw this, like when I walked in, I was committed to be like, look, I'm going to get to know them, and I'm going to like them, and they're going to like me. Like, that's what I do with every patient. I am going, like, you are going to like me, and I'm going to like you back, and we're going to go on a journey, and we're going to figure this out. Like that, I feel that about every patient. And then when you get to hear it and the impact that you have, like, it's just phenomenal. And so the reason why I want to do these Thursday night programs is because, like, you get to hear someone that's going through, like, we all have a pathway. There's a journey in front of us. And I hear this so many times from people saying, well, I know so-and-so that doesn't have health problems, or they don't have disease problems, sickness problems, they don't have finance problems. And I'm like, look, you just don't know them very well. Like, there's something over there, yeah. Right? And everybody's on some, like, the journey or process. And this journey is like, we get to share it with you. So I've had a wonderful experience. His son, his other son, a daughter-in-law. I mean, everybody's like they're connected. Like it's part of what we do. And so if you're listening to this, here's the first thing, the takeaways that I'd like to give you. One, like you're not your diagnosis. And there's an Arabian proverb that says, he who has hope has health. He who has health has everything. And that's one of the things that we always talk about in the office. You're not your diagnosis. There's always hope. There's hope is that like if we put balance and harmony in your system, or you're with a healthcare provider and they put balance and harmony in your system, there's hope. There's a chance that you're going to get better. So that being said, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on our program. And I'm so excited to share stories like this. Kind of a couple wrap-up things. This is what we do every Thursday night at 5 o'clock. We have a patient in the studio or on Skype or on Zoom telling their story about how that they're beating what's happening. And they're beating arthritis and Lyme and neuropathy, and they're getting cancer support therapies. And there's so many amazing things that just because you haven't heard about it doesn't mean that it's not working. And if you're in a position where you're faced with a healthcare obstacle, just keep going. Like there's people out there that can help you. I absolutely believe that. The glass is not half empty. It's totally full. It's half oxygen and it's half water. That being said, we also have next Wednesday night, we always have a teaching program. We're doing natural treatments for Parkinson's on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. We have our special Thrivers question and answer period at 7. We also have the ability, just as a reminder for everybody, like we can custom formulate. It's the new thing that we're doing in the office. We can get everything into one bottle. This is my son's bottle that's in college, where I literally can go in and put together a protocol to help him with health and vitality and energy and vitamins and everything inside of his system. That's our program for tonight. A special thanks to Brandon and his family. They're all special to me. I'm Jason West. This is Brandon. I almost called him Dr. Craig. I'm Dr. West. He's Brandon Craig. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. We're out. Here's to your energy, balance, and longevity.